What's up everyone, Technic here. In today's video, I will be teaching you how to fully disassemble a PS Vita 2000. And for this video, I'll be using my very special edition, limited edition, Persona 4 Dancing All Night PS Vita 2000. The reason why I'm taking this PS Vita apart is because the left joystick actually has stick drift, and I'm trying to take it apart in hopes to fix the stick drift. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this video, shall we? Alright, so the first and most important thing that you're going to need is some kind of toolkit. So I bought this Techman toolkit from Amazon for about $9. It's on sale right now actually, and I will link that in the description of this video, but it's usually for about $16. But the reason why you want a toolkit like this is you want to get the exact screwdriver. So this is a 50mm screwdriver. It's going to be small enough for all of the screws on the PS Vita, and in fact you can actually take it apart with this single screwdriver alone. But it's good that it comes with a brush tool, a couple of sponging tools, and what I like to call a guitar pick tool, because it basically looks like a guitar pick. And it has this very useful kind of, it's almost like it's a flathead shape slash kind of a pick tool. It's kind of like a double-sided tool that's very effective. And the last tool that I want to talk about is the tweezer tool. Now the tweezer tool is going to be your most essential tool in here, because that's what you're going to use for, taking apart the ribbon cables and everything. And I had another toolkit over here. It's like another screwdriver set, but I didn't really end up using it. I just mostly took it all apart with this Techman toolkit. But other than that, that's the first and very most important thing you're going to need. Now for the next step, you want to make sure that your PS Vita 1 is fully powered off, and 2, remove anything that could be inside of any of the slots of the PS Vita. So just do me a favor, make sure your PS Vita is fully booted off, check the game cart slot and make sure that there are no game carts in there. And then afterwards, please check the memory card slot to make sure that there are no memory cards in there, because at this point in time, you might have an SD to Vita in there, you might have some kind of Sony official memory card, which on the PS Vita 2000, those are the only 2 slots that you have to worry about. This isn't a Wi-Fi 3G 1000 model or anything like that. So after you're done checking these 2 slots and verifying that there's nothing in there, then you're good to go for this next step. See, I have a official memory card inside of my PS Vita, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out. And the last step, which I think are very, very important for one, making sure that nothing happens to your PS Vita during this entire process, is please lay down some kind of cloth, some kind of microfiber cloth, something just to lay down your PS Vita on, to make sure that the surface that you're working on isn't going to scratch it, and just to make sure that it's pretty much going to be safe for your PS Vita to lay on and everything. Another thing is, if you can see my very, very, very good artistic skills over there, please draw something or make something as a reference to place all of these screws. So you can draw a very professional drawing like I did, and basically place all the screws near the areas that you take out of the PS Vita. And you can honestly do this for all of the pieces. You can do this for the front plate, the back plate. Once you open it up, you can even do it for the inside if you want to. Most of you are probably better artists than me, so this is just a quick thing that I do just to make sure that I can place every single screw that I took it out in its exact same place that it needs to go into. So very important thing to do, by the way. You don't want to put the wrong screw in the wrong area, because you could potentially warp or damage your PS Vita. So other than that, we are ready to go. So unfortunately this is going to be kind of a longer video, but it needs to be just to make sure that I touch up on everything. So you're going to be seeing this picture a lot. This is a fully disassembled, or this is my fully disassembled PS Vita 2000. And the first thing that we're going to be taking off is the back plate. The back plate is the first thing that you're going to take off for any PS Vita 2000, so you can get to everything else. So let's go ahead and get started with that. For the PS Vita 2000, there's actually 7 screws that you need to remove to take off the back plate entirely. So this is not like the 1000 where there's 8, there's only 7 of them. So we only have two on the left side. We have these two on the right side. If you were to flip to the bottom of the PS Vita, we have these two next to the charging port. And the last one is a little bit tricky, and I've seen a couple of videos where people take apart the PS Vita 2000 and forget about this one, but the seventh and final screw is actually hidden under the game card slot. Now that all the screws are off, you want to switch to a plastic prying tool. So the one in the toolkit that I recommended does have a double-sided one, and it also has another one that's kind of a shape of a flathead, but I recommend the double-sided one that has kind of a hook shape on both of the sides to it. So the reason why I'm saying plastic as opposed to like using a flathead screwdriver or something like that, a flathead screwdriver will 100% damage your PS Vita 2000. Don't ever use a flathead screwdriver or anything metal in general to pry open a PS Vita 1000, 2000, anything. It will 100% crack, break, damage, or beyond repair, just basically mess up your PS Vita if you try to pry anything on it. I mean, more power to you if you can do it, but from the general public that is trying to take apart your PS Vita from this video, do not use don't use a flathead screwdriver. Don't use any kind of metal prying tool in general. The PS Vita 2000 is made out of soft plastic. It's not like the PS Vita 1000, and even if this was a PS Vita 1000, I still would not use or recommend a flathead screwdriver or any kind of metal piece. So please use a plastic prying tool and just kind of work your way around the back plate and front plate of the PS Vita, because initially you are taking off the back plate, but all you have to do is kind of work your way around. It's kind of difficult and a little time consuming, but with a little patience, a little perseverance, it will come off eventually. This entire process took maybe about 5-6 minutes for me, because I was just trying to be as careful as possible, because one, this is a limited edition PS Vita and I do not want to mess anything up on it, and two, this is actually one of my favorite PS Vitas because Persona, my all-time favorite is the Hatsune Miku one, but I wanted to essentially be careful with this and also show that you can take your time with this and achieve great results with it. So initially just take your time on this part, and eventually the back plate will come off. And after all that's done, just go ahead and lay the PS Vita down onto the table from the front faceplate. And you're going to just gently open it up from the top of the PS Vita, because as you can see, if you look on the inside of the PS Vita at the bottom, there is a ribbon cable still connected to the back plate of the PS Vita. So be very careful when you open this. That's why I specifically said to open it up from the top of the PS Vita where the game card slot is. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and as you can see, there's that ribbon cable. Now the ribbon cable for this particular one has a lift up tab. So the lift up tab is actually on the other side of where the ribbon cable plugs into, which I'm going to show in a second. Now go ahead and take some kind of plastic prying tool to gently lift up that tab that's in front of the ribbon cable. And then after you do that, go ahead and again, lift it up. Make sure that it's fully lifted up. If it's halfway, cocked back down, then the ribbon cable is not going to come out. It has to be fully up. Then go ahead and get your tweezer tools, and then gently, and I mean gently, take out the ribbon cable. Don't yank it out. Don't do any sudden moves with it. Ribbon cables break very, very easily. It's one of the very, very, very big flaws of some of these Sony devices, and Honestly, a lot of devices in general, ribbon cables are a nightmare to work with because they break easily, but they are very effective when it comes to devices. So as you can see, the back plate is fully removed. And I just kind of wanted to show this in the video just to show you what the PS Vita looks like with the back plate removed and all the screws and everything are still intact. It's just something pretty cool to see, just to see like what the inner workings of your PS Vita looks like, you know, because most people just see, you know, the screen and turn it on, playing the games and everything, but I just thought the inside looked pretty cool. To remove the battery, just gently pry up with a plastic tool on that side of the battery, and the battery should come right up. To remove the wire, use your index finger and thumb, and then hold on to the wire gently, and in a kind of shaking but upwards motion, give it a few shakes and the wire should pop up. Now to remove the left input motherboard, and I put it in quotations because you are technically working on the right side, but this is the left side of the PS Vita. So there's going to be 3 ribbon cables that you have to remove, and luckily all 3 of these ribbon cables are basically right next to each other. So there's going to be a big orange one, a small gray one, and a small green one. For these, just like the last ribbon cable that we removed, all you have to do is lift up on the pull-up tab in the back of the ribbon cable input slot, and all of the ribbon cables should come out. And I cannot stress this enough, when it comes to removing ribbon cables, please be very careful and do not rush things. I cannot stress this enough, it is very, very easy to break a ribbon cable. You do not want to search online for another ribbon cable, although they are probably very, very, very cheap and very, very easy to find. But it's a nightmare trying to replace a ribbon cable on the PS Vita, especially when one is already established on the device itself. And if you're trying to find a ribbon cable, you better hope that is actually the correct ribbon cable to use. So please be very, very careful when removing these ribbon cables. Especially the one on the left trigger and the right trigger. Those ones break very, very, very easily. And it's even a risk for me to use a metal tweezer tool on these. But as I said, if you are very, very careful with it, if you're not pinching as hard or anything like that, it doesn't even require much force to remove it. It's just more for holding purposes. Just be very, very careful with it. And as you can see, there are 2 screws on the left input motherboard. All you have to do is remove those screws. And if at this point in the video you were saying, hey, you forgot one ribbon cable, oh, trust me, I noticed it at the last minute, and I was very well about to remove the motherboard without removing this last ribbon cable. So again, there's 3 ribbon cables. It's the orange one, the gray one, and the green one. So make sure all of those ribbon cables are removed. It's fine if you remove the screws first, but in all honesty, it really doesn't matter if you remove the screws or not. The ribbon cable is very easy to remove. For this next step, go ahead and use your plastic prying tool just to gently lift up this metal L-shaped piece off of the motherboard. Afterwards, you're going to use your prying tool to kind of press in between the lift tab and the motherboard itself to lift it up. You can either use your finger or the prying tool itself, but if you kind of go in between the pull tab and the motherboard itself and then just gently pry up, the motherboard will very easily come off. As far as the other side goes, it's easy to either pull it or push it from the other side to lift up the motherboard, or just to do the same exact thing as the other side and then kind of lift it up that way. But the motherboard will come off after you do that. To remove the directional pad, all you need to do is gently pry up with the plastic tool, or you can lift it up with the tweezer tool. It's kind of more preference really. I'll actually show myself using both items at some point in this video, but all you do is just pry around it gently and eventually it should come up. As far as the PlayStation Home button, I'm actually not going to remove that, but for the joystick that's actually giving me stick drift problems, that's the one I'm going to be removing. So there's only one screw on the actual joystick, and once you remove it, the joystick should come up after that. Now what I recommend you do when removing either of the left or right joysticks, just go ahead and hold the PS Vita in your hand and kind of like palm the back side, or technically the front side of the joystick, and just go ahead and unscrew the screw. That's the easiest way to do it, just so it doesn't damage the joystick part or anything like that. Just make sure that you're actually holding the PS Vita when you do this, and it should easily come off afterwards. And last but not least, go ahead and lift up on this ribbon cable and remove it from the main PS Vita motherboard. The main PS Vita motherboard is actually going to be the last thing that you remove, but in preparation, remove this last ribbon cable. For the right input motherboard, it's going to be the same. So you're going to have one orange ribbon cable, one gray ribbon cable, and one green ribbon cable. I pointed out the fourth ribbon cable that's connected to the actual motherboard because in preparation, I usually just remove it from the motherboard itself because you're going to have to remove it anyway, and I kind of already done it on the left side. So for the right side of the motherboard, or quote unquote right side for the motherboard, I would just remove that ribbon cable as of right now, just in preparation. Afterwards, go ahead and remove the two screws. Both of them are next to the green and red, sorry, I technically should say amber or orange ribbon cables. But after you remove those two screws, the motherboard should freely come off. It's the same situation with the other side. So there's one screw holding the joystick. Instead of the D-pad, it's actually the X or cross, circle, triangle, and square buttons, and then there's the start select button. So there's only one screw on the joystick. All you have to do is unscrew it, and then it'll come off. And then you have the X, circle, triangle, and square buttons, and the start and select buttons. You can either use a plastic prying tool, or you can use your tweezer set to take these off as well. When it comes to the main motherboard, there's two brackets that is holding it in place, and each bracket has about two screws on each. So there's one screw right here, there's one screw right here, one screw right here, and one screw right there. So two screws each bracket. This is not all one piece. The top part is actually a longer, like rectangular shaped bracket, and the other one is just the large bracket that you see around the main motherboard. The purpose of the top bracket is to hold the camera in place, or the rear facing camera. Afterwards, go ahead and use the tweezers to pick up the top bracket. You can place any screws in there as needed, just in case you want to kind of keep the place of the screws and not mix it up with any other screw. And the bottom bracket is a little bit more tricky, but there is actually a trick to removing the bracket. So for this one, and I don't recommend using a screwdriver, you can use a plastic pry tool or anything like that, but the bracket, you just kind of have to pry it all around and it will come up very easily actually. So other than that, you can place the screws in the bracket where they should go, and afterwards just set it aside and we're ready to take apart the main motherboard. After this, we're going to remove the remaining ribbon cables. Now the top ribbon cable is actually optional because the only thing that is connected to that ribbon cable is the rear facing camera. So you don't technically have to remove this, but I wanted to remove it to show you how easy it is to actually remove this thing. So all you have to do is pop up the ribbon cable tab on the back of it, make sure it's all the way up, and the camera just quite easily just slides out. Aside from that, there's another ribbon cable that's actually under the assembly, which is this ribbon cable's purpose is for the front touchscreen, I believe, but you flip that one up and remove it, and after that you really don't have to remove the other side ribbon cable because the ribbon cable was attached to the right side of the motherboard. So after you've got those ribbon cables removed, and again, this is optional, you can remove the camera if you want to, but you really do not have to. And just to give you an idea of how small that camera actually is, that part is very, very small. But this is the first handheld ever to have a camera, so it's still pretty impressive. And then finally, we're going to remove this metal L-shaped piece, which it removes pretty easily. And it's kind of the same deal when it comes to the other side motherboard panels. So for the main motherboard, it's also going to have these quick release tabs on the sides of it. And you just kind of do the same motion as the other one. You just kind of get in between the tabs, get the plunger tool, and just pry it up. And there you have it. This is an entire PS Vita motherboard. This is what is responsible for making your PS Vita work. Without this, your PS Vita would not work at all. It wouldn't have custom firmware on it. Custom firmware is actually what is inside of here. Your game cards go inside of here. Your micro SD card, your official Sony memory card is what goes into here. This is your PS Vita 2000 motherboard. Alright, so after all that is said and done, we're gonna go ahead and zoom out the camera so you can just see how many pieces are actually inside of that little device that you're playing right now. So if I were to zoom out, that is the entire PS Vita from the inside out. Another thing I want to add is I want to make an apology because this video was unfortunately very long. This is a lot longer of a video that I intended to make, but what I wanted to touch on in this video is like every single step to the T, so you can kind of see close up what parts you're actually taking off, you know, the actual methods of doing it. I wanted to touch on everything to make sure that anyone disassembling a PS Vita will do it the right way and not potentially break their PS Vita, whether they want to get into repairing the device for personal or profitable gain. That's completely up to you, but I wanted to show exactly how and why you're doing certain things when it comes to the teardown for this device. Now, as a little added bonus, and you do not have to do this, by the way, but what I decided to do was I decided to pour in some 70% isopropyl alcohol. Anything higher than 70% is a plus, but I decided to pour in a little, like a little saucer of that kind of alcohol, and I decided to kind of soak my D-pad, my X, circle, triangle, and square buttons, my start and select buttons, and my home button in there, just so I can clean it off later. And as another added bonus, and by the way, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but I really should say this, but don't ever soak your joysticks specifically. Like, the only things you should be soaking, if you wanted to go that route, is your D-pad, your X, circle, Y, and triangle buttons, your start and select buttons, and your home button. Those are the only things that you actually should soak. And after you do soak them, and this is me speaking from what I've used, I actually have it's like an electric powered like compressed, how a compressed air can works. Mine is electric powered, so it kind of just keeps going until I turn it off. So unless you have that sort of thing, or some kind of drying station, it takes a significant amount of time to actually dry any of these pieces. So if you have that kind of setup, by all means soak your L and R triggers and your start and select and all that. But if you don't have that kind of setup, I wouldn't even recommend soaking anything in alcohol. I would just recommend just spotting it with some alcohol, trying to clean it off with a brush or something like that. As far as the joysticks go, I actually use that same compressed air kit, the electric one, and I basically blasted my joystick for a little while, and I just wanted to get any kind of dust fragments or anything that was causing the stick drift. But that's pretty much what I've done as far as the rest of the teardown goes. Now, what I decided to do next is for the end of this video, because I know this video was kind of long, and I do apologize for that. I didn't really intend to make this video long, but I just wanted to cover as much as I could possibly do, just to make sure that nobody messes up their PS Vita or anything like that. So what the last minute of this video will be me completely taking apart the PS Vita and then putting it back together. And I kind of time myself, not for speed purposes, not like nothing like that, not to set a record or anything, but just to show how quickly you can take apart a PS Vita, like efficiently. This is me doing it as safely as possible, and I just wanted to show that. And I'm going to fast forward it and like basically increase the speed to like 1 minute, just so you can see like how long it actually took. So I believe it only took a little over 30 minutes, but I'm just gonna show the video just to show you like a quick trick to basically keep all your parts in place if you don't have the example that I put or anything like that, or the drawing that I put. So this is Technic. Thank y'all for watching, and I hope this video helped y'all a lot. I couldn't really find a lot of videos that kind of showed parts zoomed in like I did, so I kind of just wanted to get this video out there. But thank y'all for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video.